Okay, it is now just 4 o'clock here in London, where I am based, London, the UK. So I will say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining this Transformative Teachers webinar from Trinity College London today. If you could just type in the chat box to make sure you can hear me okay, that would be wonderful. I can see the chat box has been quite busy already, which is good. And we've got participants here from all over the world, which is great. I've seen people saying they're from Ethiopia, Switzerland, Latvia, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Italy, China, the UAE, Argentina, some from the UK and Portugal. So a really nice mix of international colleagues here. Thank you all for joining us. Just before I introduce our speaker for today, just a few house rules that many of you might be familiar with. So we're going to be here for about 1 hour today, and there will be time within this hour for questions towards the end of Emily's talk. We are recording this session. So if you drop out for any reason, if you have to run away to do some marking, or you've got other things you need to do, or the internet breaks, don't worry, it's all being recorded, and you can find the recordings on the Trinity College London Transformative Teachers webinar page, which I have just put a link to in the chat box. You should be able to see us clearly, and Emily will be sharing her screen today as well. But do let us know if you need anything changed for your view in the chat box. And speaking of the chat box, we really want you to be involved in this, so please do keep your comments coming in the chat box. If you have any questions, however, to ask Emily towards the end, it might be better to use the Q&A box, which will be somewhere on your screen, because you'll see the chat box moves quite quickly sometimes, but we can keep track of all the questions and answers there. So with that being said, I'll introduce Emily now. So Emily has over 20 years of classroom experience and has written various print and digital materials. And as I'm sure some of you will know, she has a very strong social media presence, and I'm definitely one of her followers. And through that, we can see that she's very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and of course, the use of visual tools and graphic facilitation and the strategies around that to make learning more engaging, accessible, and fun, which is what she is going to be taking us through today. And I'm very excited that she is here with us. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Emily.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here. And I just want to apologise to everyone for wearing outdoor clothes and being outside. I know it's a little bit odd. We arrived at our holiday accommodation in the Atacama Desert last night and discovered that the only Wi-Fi we have is outside. So I'm lovely and wrapped up in the sunshine. I have a lovely background though, which I'm quite excited about. But yes, shall I share my screen
Yes, you
and
go
get
for
started?
it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. Um, Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. It's so nice to see so many people from all over the world. I will be using Canva whiteboards today because um, I do a lot of drawing. And before, I would quite often have to flip between screens, and using Canva whiteboard saves me from having to do that. Um, it's also a really great tool. You can share it in a similar way to Google Docs and get students all working on the same document. Um, and it's free, which is great. Teachers love free tools. So today's session is going to be on scaffolding success, visual tools to supercharge self-evaluation and progression. So we're going to look a little bit about what self-evaluation is and what progression is, and I'm going to show you some cool visual tools that you can use in the classroom. And each of these tools you can draw on your own whiteboard in the classroom, or you can draw it on your Canva whiteboard or other whiteboards that I love, or Miro and Mural. I would, of course, say Jamboard, but as many of you already know, Jamboard, the Google whiteboard, will be retiring, I think, in October. So we need to all wean ourselves off the magic of that, I'm afraid. Um, so I'll start by introducing myself. This is a little slide that I've created, a little hand-drawn graphic, because a lot of my work is very visual. I got into graphic facilitation a few years ago and I realized that it was really useful for my adult ESOL literacy learners, especially, but for all learners, because um, graphic facilitation has its roots in design industries like engineering and planning, strategic management as well. So lots of little, and it basically uses simple drawings to convey meaning and to get people thinking in different ways and interacting with information in a simpler way. And you'll notice that all my drawings are really simple. So for example, this one is a laptop and it is just a little rectangle and a couple of extra little lines and then some little crisscrosses here. And that's how you draw a laptop. And then my little people, they are just N shapes with O's. So if you believe that you can't draw, I'm hoping that this session will change that. It's not about art, it's about communication. And it's about using simple visual tools to be able to communicate in different ways and help students to evaluate their progress and develop their language skills in general. So I am Emily Bryson ELT. You can follow me at Emily Bryson ELT on most socials, or you can find me at emilybrysonelt.com. I am a teacher trainer and a graphic facilitator. I've also written quite a lot of books. I need to add to these the Hands Up project, Hands Up for Peace book, which is about drawing around your hand. Lots of different activities about drawing around your hand. We've got lots of fabulous ELT professionals who've contributed to that, and it's available for the on the Hands Up project site. And I also have a book of visual tools available on my site. For many years, I taught people from refugee backgrounds, many of them who didn't have literacy skills in their first language. So I found that drawing in the classroom was particularly useful for them, especially when maybe they didn't have script in their first language, so they couldn't write translations, etc. I'm an inclusive practitioner. Using drawings in the classroom and visuals especially makes learning more accessible. It's great for neurodiverse learners. And I don't know about you, but I certainly prefer reading or looking at infographics and visuals and pictures and comics over reading massive amounts of text. If you could just write in Zoom, how do you feel? Do you prefer um, having what do you prefer reading? Do you prefer reading lots of, do you prefer reading, for example, a research paper, a long newspaper article, or do you prefer infographics and quick visuals like memes online? If you can just share in the chat what you prefer, how do you prefer to get your information? Yeah, it depends on what you need. This is very true. If you're writing an essay and you need some research, then you're going to need research. But in general, if you just want a quick way of getting information, yeah, visuals are profitable. Yep. So most people prefer visuals because it's easier and it's more fun. People like fun. So there are many benefits to graphic facilitation, and I'd like to take you through a few of them. Um, So one thing is it's fun, and I don't believe it if anybody says that adults don't like fun in the classroom. And a lot of people often ask me, um, don't you think this is for kids? And I would say no, firstly, because this laptop that I am using was designed by an adult drawing something. The table that I'm sitting at was also designed by somebody and started off as a drawing. Drawings are very important. And they bring a bit of joy into our lives. Um, it revived my teaching mojo. I've been teaching for 20 years. By the time I got into graphic facilitation, I'd been teaching for maybe 16 years. And I've had quite a lot of ups and downs and slumps in that time. This was like a new toy to play with for me, learning how to draw and use this in the classroom. It's very supportive. So if you imagine a whiteboard that's filled with just text, And then you imagine a whiteboard that's filled with just text and visuals. Which one is going to be more supportive? If you can write in the chat. So the one with the drawings and the pictures, or the ones with just the words? Sorry, drawings and pictures, pictures and words, or on the board, or just words. Which one is going to be more supportive? Yeah, text and visuals together always wins. It aids memory, so many people can picture things in their heads. If you, uh, when I sketch note something, I remember it more clearly. There is a lot of research called the drawing effect by Whammies and Mead. And basically, they did some research with two different groups. They gave two groups a list of words to remember. One was to just remember the text and write down the words. The other group was to write down the words and draw a picture. And can you imagine which group remembered the most vocabulary? If you can write in the chat for that. But I think you probably get the hint. It was the pictures and words, of course. Yeah. It's also very relaxing and therapeutic. I taught a lot of learners from refugee backgrounds who had experienced trauma in their lives. Many had very severe mental health problems, and it was a very relaxing thing to do. It encourages critical thinking. So you can look at this picture and think, oh, sorry. You can look at this picture and think, what does this mean? What is that? Why has she drawn little cogs for critical thinking? And you could also get your students to think, how can you draw critical thinking? How can you draw relaxing? And lots of other, which visuals could you use to make this more understandable, etc. Good question. I will answer that at the end, Elizabeth. What's the difference between sketchnoting, graphic recording, and graphic facilitation? That's a very, very good question, and I will answer that at the end, if not before. I'll just take a note of that. GR versus GF. So it aids understanding. It helps you to understand having a picture. It boosts creativity. Having a picture in the classroom can help your students be more creative. When I first started out my graphic facilitation journey, I would actively encourage my students to draw in the classroom. And at one year, I decided maybe have I become an annoying teacher that's pestering students to do this? So I decided to stop and do some in-action research. And my in-action research was basically to draw in class, but not to encourage my students. And actually, I found that my students just copied me anyway. So by role modeling, I was giving them creativity and I was giving them the confidence to draw. And they were seeing that my drawings were very simple, so they were easily copied. Concept checking, so you can use it to check understanding as well by getting them to draw a picture or getting them to describe what the picture means. It's a means of clear communication, and that is what we do as language teachers, is we want to communicate clearly and we want our students to communicate clearly. It reduces processing load. So, for example, we talked about research papers. So you could have a research paper that's very long and got lots of technical language in it. Or you could have a little infographic with much less information, or just kind of summarized information that's much quicker to see and understand. It minimizes prep time. So all the activities that I'm going to show you today about progression and self-evaluation can be used in many different ways. So I've used them in webinars for teacher training events. I have used them in meetings. I have used them on myself. I've used them to plan out my own business and my own social media. I have used them with my learners as well. And each of them, once you've learned them, it takes like maybe 2 minutes to draw them. So if you've learned how to do it, or if you've downloaded it from my site, then you can use it anytime. So minimal prep. Also, they're multisensory, so great for neurodiverse learners, great for getting students moving around the classroom. Great for getting students to interact with information in many different ways. The images are copyright free, so you don't need to spend forever trolling image banks. And it supports literacy, as we mentioned before. So overall, graphic facilitation is a superpower. Um, so I'm going to start with Elizabeth's question, actually. What's the difference between graphic facilitation and graphic recording? This image that you're looking at here is a sketch note. So this is a graphic recording, and a sketch note is basically, or a sketch note is a graphic recording. And the graphic recording is basically taking information and visualizing it. So it can be, for example, watching a webinar and taking notes and adding visuals to it, or it could be um, taking a research paper and simplifying it into drawings and text. So that is graphic recording, is listening and basically turning information into visual notes. And you'll see graphic recorders sometimes draw. If you search for graphic recording online on Google, you'll see some amazing graphic recorders creating visual notes, which are absolutely beautiful. And you can do that in class, actually. I have done that in class, created like huge whiteboards and flip charts that students can use for um, well, to help them learn and and that they can copy as well. And then so graphic facilitation is what I'm about to show you. Graphic facilitation is basically when you think about the classroom as teachers, we are often referred to as being facilitators. So graphic facilitation is more about using drawings and visual tools to facilitate sessions and to help people to think about things. So all these tools I'm going to show you are activities, visual activities, basically. So I want to start. This is the cover of my book, Pathways to Success, which is a lot of visual tools, which I'm going to show you today. And I want to just start with posing the question, what is progression? So if in the chat, can you just answer the question, what is progression? And in this picture, uh, it's a visual metaphor. Graphic facilitation uses a lot of visual metaphors and visual storytelling. So, for example, this person here has progressed to the top and reached their goals. This person here is still journeying towards their goals, as is the cyclist, as is the climber. And the visual metaphors here are depend on the person. So, for example, everybody has different goals. Everybody has different ways of reaching those goals. Everyone has different speeds of reaching those goals, and everyone has different preferences for reaching those goals. So I'm just going to read out some of the comments here about what is progression. So yeah, constructing knowledge and adding to your own knowledge as well. Merging as a better version. Nice. I like that, Fiona. So basically self-improvement, I guess. The process of developing or moving towards a more advanced state. Yeah. So everybody's got this kind of progress, movement, improving oneself, and in many ways working towards either success. And success is difficult in itself because what is success? What's success to one person might not be success to another. So it's all about setting your own goals. So, for example, figure out what the students' goals are. Might be to become a C1 language user or to progress to B2. Or it could be to use their English in the workplace, for example, or just to be more confident conversationally when they go on holiday. And then they've got to think about what speed the students want to achieve their goals. because everybody is different and everybody has different opportunities. So, for example, you might have the opportunity to bypass a lot of the hard work um, and kind of jump halfway to the top. You might want to choose the difficult path, or you might be forced to choose the really difficult path. You might end up floating around on the periphery and not really progressing for a while. Like, for example, a lot of B1 learners plateau and find it quite difficult to move forwards. Um, so every learner is different and will choose a different pathway and a different way of progressing. Just for a little bit of fun in the chat, think about your own goals. Which person are you? If you like, think about the visual metaphors that we've just covered. Which are you in? Are you in the cable car? Are you taking the luxury way in a balloon? Are you going slow but steady, walking towards your goals? Which kind of are you taking the more relaxed route or taking a massive challenge by free climbing to the top? What kind of how are you progressing towards your own goals? Someone said they're the hiker floating around right now. Floating around's a nice place to be. For me, I think my preference would probably be to be the cyclist, the slow, steady sundler up the hill, and preferably in the correct gear, with very little weight on a very expensive bike. Oh, started on a bike, got a puncture, and took the cable car. That's a lovely, nice idea there, Ryan. And then had to climb off a cliff. I hope you had a rope when you did that. Yes. Thank you for all your comments. So, what is progression? So, we talked about progression there, and everyone progresses in a different way. So, showing students this visual in itself can get them to interact with how they are and where they are progressing. It can also help them to self-evaluate. So, for example, someone said that they were floating around at the side, and that's a good way of getting students to self-evaluate their own behaviors towards language learning. And the thing with visual metaphors is that it desensitizes what could be quite sensitive topics because it might not necessarily be perceived to be a good thing to be floating around in the periphery, not studying or not being very focused, for example. But it seems a bit more fun and a bit more desensitized to have somebody floating in a parachute, for example. Um, So it's also a good way of getting students to self-evaluate where they are and who they are, what they're, um, or maybe even just think about how how far they are towards achieving their goals. So, for example, they might be at A2 just now, and their aim is to get to C1. How far up the hill are they? Maybe they're halfway up. How did they get there? You can bring in all sorts of visual storytelling and get them to create their own visual metaphors as well. Like maybe there's somebody here that isn't isn't mentioned. And you're quite right, Kirata. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that's how I've pronounced your name right. It's not always possible to reach the top. You're quite right. And goals need to be adaptable and flexible and change. And sometimes life gets in the way and completely um, uh, puts a spanner in the works, changes your goal entirely, and something else comes along, so you need to change your goals and change course. So actually, this is quite a nice little pathway. You could change, you could get them to draw a different pathway and reroute as well. Okay, so that's one way that you could get them to think about what their goals are and to self-evaluate them. And I'd like to just quickly, I'm just skip to this one because this is one of my favorite tools for using and reusing in the classroom. So I created this first for it was for an action research project that I was mentoring, and the mentee was looking at mental health of people from refugee backgrounds. And we wanted a way to desensitize the topic, but also for them to explore um, what challenges they had. So we just looked at, for example, here in the mountain, we got them to think of what challenges they have. And then here, how are they going to get over them? So that's one way to use it. So we got them to think about their mental health challenges and how to overcome those mental health challenges. But I've also used this template for self-evaluation and progression because you could have students think about their goals. Where are they along this line? So they can self-evaluate. How far up are they? Things that are going to help them achieve their goals. Oops. How to achieve their goals. And yeah, and here you could still have challenges. So the how to achieve their goals, like what's going to lift them up, and maybe even what's going to weigh them down. So maybe anything that's holding them back. So, and again, you can get them to do this in many different ways. You can use this template for your school. So look at your school's goals, your school's challenges, how you're going to achieve it. You can do this for yourself. You can use it with your students. And of course, you can bring in all sorts of different language learning. So challenges could be, I find something difficult. Um, and then the language of goals. Feel free to add any language that you think might emerge from this. So goals, for example, I want to, I would like to, I hope to, I wish. Um, and then where, it could be like, I feel, I am, I think. And then things that weigh them down. Um, this makes me sad. I have uh, too much homework, that kind of thing. So yeah, you can use it in lots of different ways, and you can get students to fill it in themselves. You can get students to share it. You could do it a big classroom one. If you have Canva whiteboard, you can basically just put this image multiple times on one Canva whiteboard, share the link with your students, allow them to edit it themselves, and then they can add their own little drawings. You can get them to add sticky notes and add text. So my goal is to speak C1 English, for example. And then you'll see that my name is here. So if you get your students to add sticky notes, different sticky notes onto one template, um, they'll all have their names on that if they're all logged in correctly. Now I just need to remember how to delete that. Uh, delete. Okay, usually it's easier to delete. I don't know why it's not. I'll just move it over here for now. Would it work on Nearpod? I don't know what Nearpod is, so I'm not sure. Is Nearpod an online whiteboard? You can put this into Miro or Canva whiteboard, or you could probably put it into a Google document and have them write on it as well, but that would be writing on it. You kind of want something that you can draw on top of. Um, so I also, for me, the most fun way is to draw it big in class and then get them to use real post-it notes. And then you can get them to talk about it after class, talk about it, give each other advice, um, write about it themselves, maybe record themselves talking about it, set themselves some mantras. I want to do this, I will do that, that kind of thing. So to draw it, The very easy way is it's basically just a triangle and then a line and then a little zigzag to make it into a mountain. And the balloon is basically a rectangle or most of a rectangle and then most of a circle and then some little N or M shapes. And then you can turn that into a rectangle and then add some little lines. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to look vaguely like it. When I draw on a screen like this, especially during a webinar, I've got my laptop in front of me, so it's a little bit wobbly. But I want to show you that it doesn't need to be perfect. If you want to add a person, you can add a little N shape and a circle, and you can add some little tiered up shapes for weights if you want, for things that weigh them down. The beauty of the whiteboard is that you can draw, like zoom in quite a lot, and then they can add it. So in graphic facilitation, we have what is called containers. And I like to think of this as a container activity. So this container is a hot air balloon. So you can add ideas here inside this section. And this mountain is also a container. So you can add, for example, challenges, goals. If you were doing digital skills, you could draw the laptop that I showed you how to draw at the beginning. And then have people add ideas inside the laptop. It just makes your whiteboards more entertaining as well and more interesting. So rather than asking a question, what digital skills do you have, or what digital skills do you wish you had, you draw a picture of a laptop and then they come out and add their ideas. And they can add their ideas with post-it notes or they can add their ideas with marker pens. It's entirely up to them. But yeah, if you don't like drawing, I have drawn it all for you and you can buy it from my website in PDF form and then just add it to your whiteboards yourself. You could also show it online and then get students to draw it themselves. If students don't want to draw, I never force them to. So you can give it to them as a printout or show them how to draw it. But it is very simple. It is basically a triangle, a circle, and some rectangles. How do you feel about drawing now that you've seen this particular example of drawing? I know some of you might be super duper artists and some others might be really not like it at all. So another tool that you can use with this hot air balloon idea is the self-evaluation. Well, you can use it for self-evaluation and progression because that's what we're talking about. But yeah, here at the bottom, maybe this person isn't so confident. Maybe this person is super confident. Maybe they are already flying. So if you, in the chat, if I was doing this on Zoom with a small number of people, I would use the annotation tools and get people to leave a little mark for where they're feeling, where they were. But we don't have that today because there's so many of us. If you can write in the chat instead, where are you on this scale when it comes to well, let me see, when it comes to drawing, for example? How confident are you with drawing? Would you say I'll give you some numbers, 1 to 10. How confident are you with drawing? And again, this just makes it more fun than just having a scale of 1 to 10. Oh, Leanne models 10. Yes, good. And got some 3s, 4s, 7s, 2. So I'm hoping that if at the end of this session, you'll maybe have a bit more confidence with drawing. So you can use this in many different ways again. So you could say use it for levels of confidence. You can use it for levels of skill. You can use it for amount of time they practice something in a week. You could use it for storytelling, something that they didn't feel confident about, but now they do feel confident about. So yeah. Um, and this is another metaphor that I use a lot. So you can also describe your how you feel about drawing um, using the sun or the stormy rain cloud with how do you feel in terms of a stormy rain cloud about drawing? So I'm going to show you how to draw this because you can use this in many different ways. I've used it for talking about feelings. So you can draw this at the beginning of the class and say, how are you feeling today? I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling like this. You can use it for weather, like the literal version. How is the weather today? You can use it to tell a story. So, for example, when I woke up this morning, I was feeling quite anxious because I arrived last night and I was a bit worried about the Wi-Fi because I knew it was only outside. Um, and then when I got up, I tried to find a plug for my laptop and discovered that there wasn't a plug for my laptop next to the router, which made me a little bit more worried. But then I found a plug. Hurrah! And now here I am doing the webinar perfectly confidently. So you can use it in different ways to tell stories. Maybe you woke up very happy this morning and then something bad happened, for example. Um, you can talk about it for progress. So, for example, I came to South America in November and my Spanish wasn't that great. And then over time, I am feeling a bit more confident. I can be really quite confident when I'm speaking with somebody that speaks slowly, clearly, and uses words that I know. And then other days, I can still feel a bit like this when I speak to somebody that uses a lot of slang. So you can use it in lots of different ways to evaluate and um, have students have students interact with it in different ways. So I'm just going to show you how to draw these because I find it's a good way of giving everybody confidence. So the first one's a circle because I noticed someone was asking me for the free version. The free version is draw it yourself. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So there's the sun, and then there are clouds. I try to draw all the clouds on together so that be able to fit them all in. I've run out of space. Okay, so for the sun, I tend to do the top and the bottom, and then the two sides first, and then around the edges, and then the sunny clouds. Draw the cloud first, and then add a little circle, and then that one's just by itself. If you want to make the cloud semi-grey, you can add some little curls. If you want to make it super, super dark, you can add more swirls, which can be quite fun. Raindrops are just little lines. And then the lightning bolt is a line up the way down. And then some more little dashes. And you can get students to draw this themselves, or you can do it on the whiteboard, get them to come up, give them a board marker. You can also get them to use it for likes and dislikes. So, for example, I really like sunny weather and I really like eating chocolate. I don't like people playing music on the bus from their mobile phones. Eh, and I don't like being cold, which is why I have lots of clothes on. Okay, so what other tools shall I show you for self-evaluation and progression? So if you're not confident with drawing a mountain, a really fun way of, or a really easy way of doing it is by drawing some steps. So you can get them to have their goal at the top. And then it could be like you could add the same number of steps as there are months in their course, for example. Like if they want to, if their goal is to pass their exam, for example, and maybe they have a 6-month course. So what do they need to do in those 6 months? In the first month, I need to do this, this, and second month, I need to do this. Third month, I need to do this, and work towards it that way. Or maybe it can be number of years. And then they can look back at certain points to see where they are and where they are and to evaluate how their distance traveled. It can be these tools are also really great for looking backwards in time. Like for example, I used the mountain with my intermediate class finishing up the end of term, and they really enjoyed looking back and thinking, "Wow, I've learned a lot this year," and that can be really a good confidence boost for them. And yeah, so to draw this, basically just add little lines going up the way into steps. And then to draw a person looking very happy and proud of themselves, I like to draw people either with little N-shaped bodies because it makes you look a little bit smarter than a stick figure, but also it gives them a bit of definition. An alternative could be to draw like an oval shape or a little rectangle, and then just add a little head. If you want them to all be friends, like a group, and all be successful, then you can add some little lines there. If you just want one person, so this person is excited because they're holding a trophy. So you could have you could have them just holding their hands up that way, or you could have them that way, like in my picture. And then the trophy is just basically a U shape with a little upside down T, and then a little kind of question mark or S at the side. And then you can put a number 1 in the middle if you want to. So yeah, or you can start by going up the way. E, and then a U, and then a little S. So yeah, it's quick, simple, demonstrative, communicative, not art. Okay. And Simon, can you remind me, is it 11:45 you want me to finish up? Or was it, I can't
Maybe
remember what
you
time
can do
question
another
I
5
answered.
minutes if you've got stuff. That would be great.
Yes, I've got loads. And if anyone has, um, okay, so another way of, this is quite a nice little progression with a lovely visual metaphor in it. So I'm from Scotland originally, and we don't get a lot of sun. We get quite a lot of rain. So for me, hot, sunny weather is my ideal. But I know depending on what country you live in, maybe you want to try and escape the sun, so you might want to reverse these. For me, a paradise island would be nice and colourful and bright and sunny, and there's palm trees. That's like where you want to be. So here, this is your goal. And I use this for my first group program for teaching graphic facilitation to English language teachers. It was a 6-week program, but you could have as many weeks as the course program that you have. You could do this big as a frieze on the wall in your classroom, and like for example, move one little boat depending on the week towards the end goal, for example. And you could have things that you need to do each week, different tasks. And I have used this with adult learners. All of these tools I've used with adult learners. They're not just for children. Adults love fun, bright, colourful things just as much as children do. So yeah, you can have the goal here. And the progression is working towards the paradise island of palm trees and colourfuls and bright sunny skies, and you're moving away from the clouds. Okay, I'll just show you how to draw this, or some of the things in it. So start with a kind of wiggly line, and then add your paradise island. And one really easy way of drawing a palm tree is just having a zigzag with more zigzags coming out the side. Or you can make just like lines here and have them just zigzaggy. Or you can draw one line, another line, and then the zigzags I was telling you about. Or if you prefer, you can do curves. And if you have the luxury in class of using different colors, then go for that. I tend to use all the same color when I'm drawing for teachers, because often it's just one black whiteboard pen that we have, and often we don't have the same luxury of time when we're drawing live in the classroom to be messing around with color. But yeah, feel free to add color if you want to draw it beforehand. Okay, so that's your paradise island. I showed you already how to draw sun and the clouds. And then to draw the boats, basically just a U shape, and then another line, and then a triangle. And you can repeat that. You could even repeat it with different shapes. You could have different shapes for different students, different colors for different students, and have them all actually move the object along if they want to. If you were doing it in, for example, this whiteboard, you could take pictures of it, and then Canva whiteboard lets you upload pictures. So you could add the pictures and then have them move them along in time as well. Okay. And oh, okay, I've zoomed out, so I'll show you this. So like little footsteps as well are quite good. You could have this, for example, for vocabulary. You could have this on the whiteboard, or you could have this as part of, for example, this is the first week, this is the 10th week of your course. How many is that? Ninth week of your course. You could have this for pronunciation, you could have this for vocabulary, different colours and different colour codes. Or again, you could have different colour codings for different students. And to draw a footprint, I like to draw the 2 lines first. And then this bit's basically just a backwards D. I like to think about a lot of the drawings as basically just letters. And then this is like a really big D. Oh yeah, those are some various different ways of evaluating progression. So this is like the swamp. So again, moving from one side to the other, or you could have students make a pathway from one side to the other. Each of these tools, I love them because they can be used in so many different ways and repurposed for loads of different contexts, for business context, for young learners, for adults, for your own team, teaching teams, for example. These are dangers, what could lead you off the path of learning and studying every day, what could distract you, too much television, for example. Um, Maybe you want this side to be super colourful and more fun, for example, or illustrative of the goals. So these are just some of the tools that are in my Pathways to Success visual tools for goal setting, self-evaluation and progression. And they can all be reused and repurposed in many different ways. If you want to get in touch with me, there's lots of freebies available at emilybrysonelt.com. And you can commission me to create sketch notes for you if you want. I also have some online courses that you can do that will give you confidence in using drawings and creating your own visual templates. I can deliver teacher training to your school if you're interested in that. And I can also create things like graphic organizers for you. So yeah, lots of different things that you can contact me for. So you can follow me at Emily Bryson ELT.
Fantastic.
And I think that's it. If you, yeah.
That's
So these are
really
some of my
fantastic.
freebies if you want them.
Wow, great stuff. I've just put the website
Thanks.
into the chat box as well for people to
Oh,
follow
great.
directly from there. But that's great. I mean, just so many ideas in such a short amount of time, and I think it's quite difficult sometimes to get learners to self-reflect in a way that's really useful for their learning. They can
Yeah.
tick boxes and they can say the right things, but it's quite hard to know if they've really engaged with it. And I really love how these ideas really make them think outside the box and make them think in different ways. I mean, the mountain one, for example, just deciding how you're going to get to your goals, or even the steps. And I've been a good student as you've been talking. I've been drawing my notes
Yay.
as well, and I'm not a confident drawer,
Yes.
but it's helped me here organize things. So thank you for that. Um, there are a couple of questions that have come up. If I could ask
Yep.
those, if that's okay. So
Yeah, go for it.
I guess one of the questions is obviously here you've got some of the things that you seem to have templates for, and other things you
Yep.
were showing us how to draw. I mean, I guess there might be a difference if it's online or in the classroom, but are you advising us to draw these things before the class, or is it okay to do it during a class? Like when should we be creating these things?
It really depends on the person and the context and what you're planning on using it for, and how confident you are with drawing in class. If you're super confident with drawing in class, then I would say just draw it in class.
Hmm.
And you don't want to spend a long time, and these don't take a long time. Like a lot of them take less time than it is to write a few words or a paragraph on the board. Um, yeah, it depends on the context, really. The pre-made templates are great for um they're printable, and you can
Mm.
give them out as worksheets, and you can put them into things like Canva whiteboard or Miro or Mural. You can draw them in class yourself and have students interact with them. Yeah, for me, the beauty is that you can use them in lots of different ways. I'm giving people ideas and ways to use them in class. What they can add, I think the teachers, it's up to the teachers themselves how they want to use them and how they
Excellent.
think would work best with the students, really.
Yeah, I liked what you were saying about the camera as well, that you're able to sort of zoom in and out of what you're doing. And so those that feel confident, they can draw things, they can leave post-it notes, so that you can interact with the imagery in different ways, which I think is really important for that kind
Yeah,
of differentiation, if you like, of learner preferences in
yeah.
some ways, which is
And
great.
lots of ways that you can like extension tasks, like you can get them to write about the activity, you can get them to give each other advice about the activity, get them to record a little video giving advice, or like pretending to life coach each other, for example, that kind of thing.
I love that. Great ideas.
Yeah.
Um, had a couple of people asking about how you were doing what you were doing here. So obviously, for those of us that maybe that have the technology in our classrooms or maybe teaching online, how are you doing that live drawing just now? Are you dragging your mouse around? Have you got an iPad that's connected? What are you doing
Uh,
here?
I've got a touchscreen laptop, which I know that most people probably won't have. the luxury of. But yeah, you could do it with a mouse. You could you could pre-draw it as well. Um, so if you pre-draw it, there's an app called Cam Scanner, which is really good. So you can pre-draw it on paper, and then take a photo of it on Cam Scanner, and then and there's a setting called Magic Color, and that will make it all look really quite snazzy. You could also, if you've got a visualizer, which is kind of like it's like an overhead projector, but it goes into your screen. So if you've got a visualizer, you can take a video of it, of you drawing live as well. And they're not very expensive visualizers. Um, yeah, but I do have the luxury of drawing on my laptop screen. You could do it on your tablet as well.
Excellent. Good. There
If
is a
you've got a
question.
touchscreen laptop as well, you could just do it with your finger. Like that's me just drawing with my finger now. So
Nice. Okay, so it's sort of like the sort of thing you might get with an interactive whiteboard as well, where you can just
yeah,
touch on there.
exactly. And yeah.
There is a question here as well about collaborating on this, and it's quite a technical question in some ways. But if we are going to use Canva, is
Hmm.
it possible? You said we couldn't do it today because, quite rightly, we've got lots of people in the classroom. But is it easy for
Yeah.
people to collaborate on a Canva whiteboard?
Yeah. So I've just clicked on share here on my screen. So if you go to share in the top corner of Canva, and then you can get a collaboration link, and then anyone with the link can view it or can comment on it or can edit it. So it depends what you want your students to do. So you could give them the same visual tool multiple times on one document, and then they can all edit it, and then they could all have or they could have one visual tool that they all interact with as well. But I guess there does need to be a bit of training with that. But yeah, and I think Canva's a bit. I'm pretty sure Canva Whiteboard's free. I pay for it because I use it for so many things, for social media, for creating reels, for like I created this book, Pathways to Success, in Canva, and then changed it to PDF.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such a great tool. Um,
Excellent. Something for us all to research and look into if we're not doing
yeah,
already, which is good.
yeah,
Excellent. I think with that one, we're going to call it a day for there. We're just about to approach the hour, but we've had some really nice questions, some really nice comments as well, and it was a really nice interactive session as well. Thank you for asking us so many questions and getting it. Again, like with lots of these webinars, I'm sort of going away now with lots of things to talk about with my peers here at school. Go down to the teachers' room and have a good chat with them. And as I said, I've got my notes here all drawn up, so I'm going to start drawing things and seeing how my students react to
yeah.
that going forward. So thank you
Nice.
so much
Cool.
for sharing
I look
everything, and I'm
forward to hearing
sure.
how they get on.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure lots of people will be in touch as well. As I said to everyone here, we know you're very, very active on both LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So if people
Yeah,
aren't following you, they definitely should be, because there's some great stuff on there. I always enjoy seeing your posts. So please keep them coming. They're very, very welcome.
yeah. Lots of doodling demos and sketch notes on there.
Absolutely.
But
Really
yeah,
good
and
stuff.
actually next Tuesday, I'll be live drawing for the first time ever. Um, I'll be live drawing the Macmillan Fast Forward event actually. So if anybody wants to come and see me drawing live, uh, yeah, they can catch me there.
Excellent, great stuff. Well, thank you very much for this today, and thanks everyone who joined us today as well. Very, very lively chat, very, very good questions, and we look forward to seeing you next month for the next Trinity College London Transformative Teachers. All the details are on the normal spots online. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your days.